The first person who taught me about survival was Lee.
What'd he teach you?
Lots of stuff.
Most important thing?
Alright, like always, I'm a little late to add my voice to the discussion, but better late than never, because I just played the conclusion to arguably one of the biggest hits, yet commercial failings of the last decade of gaming. You know, we can't even call it the Telltale's Walking Dead anymore, because it's not. Maybe Skybound's Walking Dead sounds a little too forced and inappropriate. Anyway, I just finished the final season of Clementine's journey through Kirkman's zombie-infested world, and well, I gotta say I loved every second of that ending. And I'm going to be talking about the ending, so, you know, spoilers ahead.
I never had a plan. I never knew where we were going. I never knew anything. I just fought and fought and fought and hoped you didn't notice.
The perfect blend of bitter and sweet, yet culminating in one satisfactory conclusion for my daughter of so many years. But before I get sentimental, I want to touch upon something that had been aching me the whole time throughout this playthrough, and that was the theme of this season. It would be easy to say the theme is exploring the duality of maturity and immaturity within children, but that is there. But I think there's something a little more meta happening. And that's because The Walking Dead, or at least the final season, is basically just one giant generational allegory. And by that I mean the zombies represent a new set of threats to a new generation of people. Specifically children like AJ, who never got a chance to see the world as it was before, a world that only exists with zombies and probably will continue to exist with zombies for a very long time. Thus allowing this story with children as major characters to challenge and deliver on some of the themes that the authors are pushing. Walking Dead has always been about this though, but never in this manner and never with this lens. The first 3 seasons of The Walking Dead pertain to trying to uphold the decency of civilization in this crumbling world. But this is the very first season that seems to toy with the idea that there is something wrong with that moral argument. How can someone hold themselves to the moral standards of the past when they've never been a part of it? One that is now safely in the past, and specifically a past that has never benefited them. Contrary to characters like Carl from the comics, or Carver, or Lily, Clementine and most of the children aren't approaching this brutality of the new world with a dictatorship or authoritarian or fascist lens, because that would imply they understood the basis of what a civilization is supposed to look like. Clementine may remember a resemblance, but due to their younger sense of mind, it means they're approaching it from a more naive and base point of view. I touched upon this briefly with the series opening with Marlon in another video, but to sum it up, it's immediately apparent that in contrast to the other villains of the series, Marlon freaks out, owns up, he surrenders, yet he dies. A choice that affects AJ to the end of the series and colors the tone for this season. A bunch of children trying their best to protect each other, and how the tragedy is more formed around the children's indecisiveness and inability to know and understand how to handle the world, or the problems brought upon them by the world. And this carries all the way through the season, and a lot of interactions with AJ are helping him contextualize his decisions. And more important, it just seems no matter how much you try to imprint on him that there is this moral standard you should hold yourself to, he doesn't quite see eye to eye with you. If you sacrifice the goods to Abel, then he says you look soft. He has his constant desire to keep a weapon on him, and there's this indecision on whether or not to kill Lily. No matter what you do, you only end up affirming a divide in your way of thinking, which is not only a good way to utilize the nature of a choose-your-own adventure, as the player is really the only one in control and can change their mind depending on the context, but also to get at the heart of the true story here. That being that AJ is learning and growing up in a different time, a time that's not going to reflect all the values that Clementine upholds. As mentioned before, the world is not changing, the world has changed, and AJ reflects that. This all culminates with your conversation in the cave when he asks for your permission to act on his own free will. And I'm sure just by judging by the split in the percentages, and even me who said he should, everyone was feeling uneasy about that choice. Because after all, he's talking about killing people. That's wrong, right?
I don't think that murder means the same thing as it did when you were little. In a world that's gone now, murder is a thing that makes us safe.
But you see, that's exactly the point. For a generational reading of a story to work, you need to make your reader, or your viewer, or your player uncomfortable. The writer needs to challenge the standards and morals that the general reader would operate under. And of course, we, the player, know killing is wrong, but that's not the point. AJ isn't growing up like us. He isn't growing up like Clementine. He is growing up like AJ, in a world where zombies eat your face if raiders didn't already shoot your foot. It becomes very apparent within AJ's monologue, his word choice of firefighter. Now, the writers could have possibly chosen firefighter because for him to say police officer would understandably cause some controversy. But from the fire from the torch, and Clementine says he'll be a good firefighter in one of her possible reactions, we'll go with that. And what do firefighters do but combat a universally perceived threat? Something that is a harm to everyone. Fire. Because that is not only how AJ perceives the zombies, but people as well. As something uncontrollable and scary and something that means him harm.
Said all the policemen and firefighters died. So, I'm gonna be a new one.
And weirdly, the only sense of morality that does speak to AJ is James. Why? Because his morality surrounds something that AJ can tangibly see, something that he's interacted with, just something that he knows because it's in the world he understands. And in either circumstance, it is heartbreaking for him to either see James die or watch his philosophy crumble, because it's the failings of James' idyllic outlook and achieves the final nail in AJ's coffin. And as a result, the player was given a choice to trust him or to protect him. And here we see the best part of this theme. AJ's outlook is uncomfortable, scary even, and he's different from Clementine and the player. But we've grown to care for him, and we all want what's best for him, but we aren't 100% sure he's on the right path. But he wants his independence, and so just like any generation after their own, they want to uphold what they care about, but their experience will always be different. And being able to recognize that difference and accept that he's going to be okay with his own independence, or not, it speaks miles about Clementine, about who she's going to be and grow up to be. I mean, quite simply, like many other generational stories, imperfect people grow up to make more imperfect people, and Clem and AJ are no different. And of course, the nature of this game being choose your own adventure does ultimately mean that the articulation and takeaway of them is up to each individual player, but that's not inherently a bad thing in a video game. Nonetheless, I think it is amazing because it does give you unease about the future, and that's the key, because it gets the player to truly narrow down on what's really important to them. And find that one thing, that you can only impart one piece. If everything else gets lost in translation, you do impart one thing. And albeit this is canon regardless of what you chose, because I think, in my opinion, it would be, without it being canon, this would be a really bleak story with some bad takes, but it does show that what's really important is people. That no matter what you do, AJ will always learn the importance of people. Even if it means they're scary, even if it means abandoning everything else you, Clementine, and the player cared about, she still ended up teaching AJ that people matter. Even though things will change in between generations of people, morals and judgments will shift, there are a certain set of values that should and will remain constant. And that constant just so happens to be people. Specifically, you want to get a little more precise, community. Because neither Clementine nor AJ would have survived without people. Lee taught and died for Clementine so Clementine could teach and survive with AJ. It's a very hopeful ending to a very dark season. That even though things are changing, there are going to be bad moments. Ultimately things are going to get better eventually. Even if not everyone's going to be there to see it. But at least they can give the people after them something to strive for. Of course, this ending isn't perfect, this ending isn't without flaws, but I think those flaws stem more from the zombie genre fiction. This story is adapting that cruelty of survival fic and using a generational allegory. It's still not great because the next generation, isn't asking for your permission to kill people or something else so cruel. I think a lot of genre fiction stumbles into this problem, which is why I think people need to approach it more abstractly. But, if this still doesn't work for you, I wouldn't blame you. Regardless, I think it's a good ending to Clementine's story, and I really do hope that this is the end. My daughter has earned her happy ending and finally deserves some rest with her girlfriend. So, whatever comes next, be it a new series or The New Frontier, which I seem to be the only person who enjoyed The New Frontier, but whatever. Nonetheless, I'll be excited. But for now, that's all I got. Thank you for watching and sharing this with your friends, and I'll see you next time.